Hi, this is Les-Levine, the self-proclaimed voice of truth and reason in Ohio sports. So much today is focused on what just happened in sports without putting anything in a historical perspective. That's why I like what the Browns did with their new uniforms, undoing what they did wrong 5 years ago. While there is a modern look, basically they've taken the look they had when they did become one of those iconic franchises like the Packers, the Steelers, the Giants, and the Cowboys. Similarly, Terry-Pluto was just given the award as the best sports writer in the country. And he didn't win it because they picked a writer from the same area of the country that won some titles in the past year. If you read Terry's stuff from 10 years ago or 30 years ago, there are always references to the past, to Hal Lebovitz, Bob August, Chuck Heaton, and more. There are plenty of great writers in the country today who don't have that historical sense of what they're seeing. Thank goodness Terry-Pluto is not one of them. More Sports and Les-Levine is on the air with Terry-Pluto exclusively on cleveland.com. From the worldwide headquarters of More Sports and Les-Levine, it's a Thursday night. Good evening, everyone. Welcome once again to More Sports and Les-Levine into its 24th consecutive year, seen exclusively on cleveland.com. We welcome in Terry-Pluto, we haven't seen in a long time. That's still you, isn't it, Terry? Where have you been all these months?
Well, I've been stuck in this little box here, Les, that we're doing this show with. How about this? I was thinking about this as we went into the new technology, and you mentioned, a couple of my mentors, Hal Lebovitz and Chuck Heaton, and while I didn't go back quite as far as they did, I did write on a typewriter, which you wouldn't have to stop it. If I had a picture of one, we could show what it is.
Yeah, and put it by a payphone.
Right, by a payphone. And the cool thing too is, here we are doing whatever this Zoom thing is, and if the Browns could do a draft this way, right, we could do a show.
Sure. Hey, more importantly, what did you think of the new uniforms?
I thought they were pretty sharp. Surprised me. You know what I was thinking lately? This is just the last couple of years. The decisions the Haslams have made in terms of off the field stuff, not on the field, but off the field. The way they've gone and gotten involved in the inner city in Cleveland with a lot of the different charity things and helping the Senate schools. And it seems like whenever there's something community driven, they make the right call immediately. I thought it was nice they rescued the soccer team for Columbus.
Right. You bring up a great point.
Uniform. In other words, they're doing a lot of the right stuff.
Right.
On that. Now we'll see if they do it on football, but at least on that part's been good, because you and I, we've been very critical of them on a bunch of the football things, but the uniforms, in other words, was a continuing step in those right directions they made on things off the field. Now, to fans, it may not matter a whole lot because, which is in the end, you're judged by wins and losses. But I do like it when the owners are doing the right stuff when they have a chance to help the city or help kids.
I don't recall ever having hearing about them doing something for the community, and I don't remember ever saying, "Well, that's just a PR move, and they don't really mean it." Mm-hmm. I think you make a great point. I think that they're sincere in what they do, but when it comes to the football stuff, you got to stay out of the room and let the guys you hired just go and do it. The thing on the uniforms, to me, is I was concerned that if you had 5 people on the uniform committee, all 5 would want to get a little piece of one guy gets the sleeve, one guy gets the leg, right. One guy gets the helmet. It looks like somebody took charge, went back to the old days. It's the Jim Brown 1964 look, and good for them. What I was surprised about is the community response. The only complaint I heard is they would have liked the Brian Sipe orange pants somewhere along the line.
I have to admit, I never liked the orange pants.
Me too.
But less alignment. They're having alignment.
Yeah.
And actually, alignments is a good thing as long as you're lined up in the right direction.
You mean alignment doesn't necessarily mean it's a positive thing. I got you.
Well, basically everybody could be together and be sincere and be sincerely wrong.
Right.
But the Browns never even gave that a chance, because just about in all their approaches, there always tend to be, remember the infamous internal discord thing.
Right.
In fact, one of the columns I just finished writing now will be up on cleveland.com tomorrow and in the Plain Dealer, listening to Paul-depodesta's conference call. And in fact, behind you, I think I saw that paper that said alignment, that this is the draft where they've got their alignment. I mean, these are the guys that are all coming out of the same, analytics textbook. They've taken that cake, they frosted it some now with the mantra of, I got to get it in the right order, smarter, tougher, accountable for players. In other words, bringing the human element into it. And they're all saying the same stuff, kind of like the Indians do. Now, you still have to pick the right guys. But as I wrote, this is the first time, I think, where you're giving analytics a full shot because you don't have a bunch of rookies doing it. Paul-depodesta has been there since 2016. He talked about how much he's learned about drafts and everything since then. Back then, he really was a baseball guy. Andrew Berry was through a couple drafts here and then some drafts with the Philadelphia Eagles. And Stefanski comes from Minnesota. So while they have the same basic philosophies and they're younger guys, they do have a lot more experience than when they rolled the analytic thing out back in 2016. And Hugh Jackson hated it from the moment, pretty much after his opening press conference. Once he got the job, he thought it was stupid.
Right. Well, the one thing I'm concerned about is that I want them to stay away from trying to win the draft. Do what you have to do.
Yep.
Do what comes to you, and don't look for stuff so that you're going to get your name in the headlines as to what you did on the draft. Now, speaking of headlines, the award you just won is the Headliner Award, the best writer in the nation. First of all, congratulations and well-deserved. And what they pointed out is your passion for writing. And I pointed out in the commentary that this wasn't a case of, well, somebody had a block for Jim Brown. It's not a case where Cleveland won all the awards, all the titles, and they said, well, we better give the award to the guy who wrote about it. That's not what this is all about. So congratulations to you.
Yeah, thanks so much. I've entered that contest about 1 million times and never came near anything. So either it was my year, better than the teams, or I bought off the judges. But either way, I'm taking it, and I'm gonna. I always say awards are like fish when you go fishing. Now, don't jump in the water after the fish, but if they jump in the boat, take it and hang them up on the wall.
Or have dinner with it. 216-575-0403 is the number to call.
Dinner.
You can email us during the show at real-levine@gmail.com. All right, Colin-Cowherd has a way of saying, my ratings aren't good this week. I think I'll talk about Cleveland. And that's low-hanging fruit, as we call it in the business. And that's what he does. He says that Odell-Beckham-Jr. wants out of Cleveland. Now listen to what he says, Terry, and it'll make you, it's so elementary what he's saying. He says, this is on Fox Sports 1. The same source who gave me the Tom Brady to Tampa Bay story? Well, that source just texted me, OBJ wants out. He's been a good soldier, and he's not going to make a big deal about it. He's going to deny it, and he'll want to get along with everybody. Just say this, OBJ will not go public, and he knows Minnesota is a good place, and he knows it's a good fit. I'm just going to leave it at that. That's not good reporting, or it's not good reading of the tea leaves, I don't think.
No, it's not, Wes. And I think also, first of all, the Minnesota report is so bad. Here's why. We're going to do a little math. You ready for some math, Les?
Do it, absolutely.
$14 million is Odell's salary.
Right.
What were they supposed to trade for Odell? A second and a fifth. Did you hear anything about a player in there?
And it's second and fifth next year.
Doesn't matter if it's next year or whatever. Just stick with me on the numbers for a second.
All right.
So in other words, there's no player coming to Cleveland. No salary coming to Cleveland.
Right.
You know how much salary cap room Minnesota has right now?
Nothing.
$12 million.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically. In fact, they were almost at zero. They've been dumping salary the whole time to try and get to $12 million in room. So in other words, the last thing, they couldn't even do it according to NFL rules. And secondly, it doesn't fit into how they've dumped a lot of veterans they like for the money. It was stupid. The moment I heard it, I said, this trade is dumb because it doesn't add up. Because I knew that Minnesota had hardly any salary cap room.
Well, it doesn't mean they're not talking. It doesn't mean they're not talking about a trade.
No, I mean, it doesn't. But I just think right now what Minnesota's doing, in other words, if it happens, the Browns are going to be taking a big money player back. And maybe there's a big money player they want. So that could be possible. And this isn't to say that, Odell's going to be here forever. Heck, Odell, you know how he's been every week. It was something different with Odell. Maybe he wants out this week. Maybe next week he wants to run for, congressman from the district in Cuyahoga County. Who knows with this guy?
Let me ask you one question before we take a break.
Yes.
You mentioned Andrew Berry has been through a couple of drafts here, and DePodesta has been around for 4 or 5 years now. So
right.
do we have a book on Andrew Berry? Do we know that, you can look at the record and there's a lot of trade ups, trade downs with the Browns since Haslam's had it. Do we have a book on Andrew Berry?
Well, what we did, when we talked to DePodesta, he admitted that while he's open to trading up, he said he's done it. I mean, they still like the pile of picks, and some of which leads more to trading down. New England does it, but it all depends how you use the picks. I guess what I am saying, what my point is about them coming together now is, it's like most people, you should be better in your job after you've done it for a while, and you should be better if you don't have a lot of the internal fighting that they've had in the past. So now we'll see. This is now I will give them this. Let's see what you think. They talked about, Berry said it, and DePodesta said they had a plan for free agency, and they went out and did it.
Right.
And I think it was pretty clear. I would have liked to seen a little more money thrown on the defensive side of the ball, but going out right away, getting Conklin, getting Hooper, getting Keenum. It's pretty smart stuff, and they beat some other teams too, those guys.
216-575-0403 is the number to call if you want to talk to Terry Pluto. Did you know the Ohio Lottery has paid out over $1 billion in winnings over the last 6 months? People are winning in record numbers, and winning is happening all around the state of Ohio. Play an Ohio Lottery game and play it today. We'll come back in a moment. You can follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/more-sports-and-les-levine with new content posted each and every day. We got a big response to today's question of the day, which we'll check on a little bit later. Terry Pluto with us. More Sports and Les Levine continues exclusively on cleveland.com.
Presque Isle Downs and Casino has sports betting. Use one of our 50 state-of-the-art Bet America kiosks to place your bet and watch your favorite games on one of our many HD televisions, or visit our sportsbook area. Only at Presque Isle Downs and Casino.
As a kid growing up, my dream was to go to college, play baseball, and get a degree. Coming out of high school, I had two choices. I was accepted into a four-year university, but I decided to come to Tri-C after receiving a scholarship. I got my associate's degree at Tri-C. They transferred all my credits straight into Baldwin-Wallace, so I started at Baldwin-Wallace University as a junior. My name is Tyler Leonard, and I earned my first degree at Tri-C.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
Birthdays for today: Paul Wainer, Hall of Famer, baseball, 1903. Dick Night Train Lane, I think this is one of the best nicknames in all of sports. Night Train Lane, defensive back for the Detroit Lions, born in 1928. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, born on this date. Dell Computer, 1947. Bill Belichick celebrating a birthday. That automatically makes this a good birthday day. And Nolan Arenado, one of the great players in baseball that people don't really know about throughout the country. 216-575-0403. Terry Pluto with us. Terry will talk a little bit about baseball a little bit later. But you used the word alignment. The Browns are using that. The alignment for Berry and Kevin Stefanski's scheme I think is interesting. And you mentioned some of the players that they wound up getting here, which seem to fit in that alignment. And that's Austin Hooper. And let's compare it to what the Minnesota Vikings had done offensively with the tight end situation. And there you have it. The Browns signed Hooper to a 4-year, $44 million deal, 75 receptions, 786 yards. Stefanski ran a 2 tight end system on 57% of Minnesota's snaps. So it's going to be interesting if he's going to try to push that in. The key to that, I would assume, is David Njoku, right?
Yes, I would think so, unless they go find somebody else. Maybe they take somebody in the draft farther down. You could sometimes find, I think even Hooper was like a 3rd-round pick.
Right.
You could sometimes find a tight end, farther down the draft. The other thing that's key to that system is that Baker-Mayfield's going to be under center more and doing more play action.
Right.
So that's a thing he's going to have to learn to do instead of taking the snaps in the shotgun.
All right, the Browns also added a fullback, making it a running alignment. Let's take a look at the run game and see what we have right here, the offseason scheme here. They signed Jack-Conklin to a 3-year deal, and Conklin is the 5th best run-blocking tackle according to Pro Football Focus, and also Andy-Janovich is the 2nd best run blocker in the league. Not all of the teams have the run blocking or the fullback, so it'll be interesting to see how this works. But Terry, are you concerned that maybe they're trying to force feed an alignment or force feed an offense when they don't have the players for it yet, or do they think they have the players? Do you think they have the players to do that?
Well, you have 2 premier running backs,
right?
And you have, by the way, when you sign a fullback, that means you're going to be taking some snaps under center. I just like a quarterback that could go under center and make some plays. I think when you're just in the shotgun all the time, and I know Tom Brady's there a lot and some others, it's sort of predictable. And I'm all for this. I want to see this work. Kirk Cousins, this helped him. This helped Case-Keenum. This offense can take certain types of quarterbacks and really raise their level, and quite a bit. So I'm excited about that part. If they didn't have good running backs and they didn't go get a fullback, then I would feel differently. And let's face it, whatever they were doing with Baker-Mayfield last year, that was not a good idea.
Right. All right, how about, all right, so here's the fullback situation, as you suggested. Stefanski used C.J. Ham on 223 snaps, and the Browns traded a 7th-round pick to get him. It looks like a good deal if the run game works, and he also had 22 receptions out of the backfield. So it'll be interesting. Haven't had a fullback in, maybe 4 or 5 years here in Cleveland? Something like that. We'll see how that works.
I mean, I always remember Mangini had that Lawrence Vickers. I love that.
Yeah.
How much worse can it be at the goal line?
When you got 9 plays, you got 9 plays at the 1-yard line and can't get it in.
To lose 4 yards or whatever. It was ridiculous.
That's not good. All right, so they added Keenan, as you mentioned, and Keenum is not here to play. Hopefully, he will play if there's an injury or if Baker doesn't do what he's supposed to do out there. But that's kind of a hefty 3-year salary for a backup quarterback who has started 14 games under Coach
Basically,
Stefanski.
it's 2 years, $10 million guaranteed. The last year is the high part. Thing to keep in mind, in 2 of Stefanski's last 3 years in Minnesota, quarterbacks got hurt early. He had lost Bridgewater very early, and I forgot what year it was, but then they ended up going to Sam Bradford, and that ended up with Case-Keenum that 1 year. And so he's been through these different guys. He wants a backup to be able to play because he knows that
it's odd that a guy is going to get.
But you don't want to go with Garrett Gilbert, whoever his name was, playing. Because part of the way to judge your team, because remember they're talking about they want to see the different players they have,
right,
is to have a veteran quarterback and at least get everybody lined up the right way and see what the offense looks like.
All right, so the Browns added some offense, and I don't know if you could say they neglected the defense. They're still working on the defense. Jadeveon Clowney is a name that's still thrown around. There's a couple of others. But let's look at the defensive line right now, and, of course, just getting Myles-Garrett back is pretty good. I just assume Olivier Vernon is gone, but that's not the case yet. What do you think his deal is?
I think they're looking to see if they can find something better and cheaper. I mean,
Okay.
Vernon to me he missed 4 games, 5 games, and 6 games. That's the last 3 years. 4, 5, 6. Okay. What does that tell you that he'll probably do this year? He'll probably miss somewhere between 4 and 6 games, if not more.
Right.
Do you want that for $15 million? I don't. I doubt that they do. But in the meantime, they are shopping around to see what they could get. Maybe they end up taking a defensive tackle or a defensive end rather they like in the second round or something. They could surprise us.
Let's take a look at the linebacking situation. Linebacking situation looks
Boy,
kind of
they got to
scary
do
to me.
something there.
Well, they do.
Oh.
How about one of the great PR moves would be, you talk about throwback uniforms, how about Clay Matthews Jr. or the third?
Well, I think they're looking at Matthews and a couple other guys to, as time goes on, you could probably get these guys pretty cheap. And that's probably the way they look at it. Matthews is supposed to be more of a 3-4 linebacker as opposed to the 4-3 setup the Browns have. I want to tackle at 10, but I would take Isaiah Simmons from Clemson.
Well, yeah, I'm right with you. I'm right with you on that one.
Because you have a chance to have a game-breaking defensive player if you could figure out how to use him right.
Right.
And if that guy falls in your lap, you've got to take him. And Daniel Jeremiah, who's very good, used to be a Brown scout. I think he worked for the Vikings too. I know for sure he worked for the Browns. His latest mock draft had Simmons falling to the Browns. I mean, that's real easy. And then, you try to trade up. Remember, how about this? Ezra Cleveland to Cleveland. They like this Ezra Cleveland guy. You like that.
Bring back Cleveland Crosby.
You make your moves, right? That would be the only. That's not to diminish the left tackle spot, but my goodness, the linebacker and they debate whether Simmons is a linebacker or a safety. Gee, do the Browns need linebackers or safety? I say both.
Oh, well, let's look at the cornerback situation right now for the Browns.
Okay.
Denzel Ward is there. He's had injuries over the last couple of years. Terrence Mitchell, Greedy Williams, and a couple of other guys had been signed. They could use some shoring up there too, couldn't they?
They could. I mean, the key thing is if Ward can stay healthy, they're going to be in pretty good shape. Terrence Mitchell's not a bad player, but remember, he got hurt too. And so they've dealt with that. Some people like that Kevin Johnson, some don't. Greedy Williams, I think we'll have a better idea what kind of player he is this year. The rest of those guys are just guys.
All right, let's look at the guys that they have for the safety position right now. And, of course, the draft will take place 1 week from tonight. Carl, it's kind of thin there, right? Carl Joseph, Shedrick Redwine.
I mean, Sendeo is a veteran. He's 32. Carl Joseph is really he's a run stopper, and he's coming off a torn plantar fascia. Cedric Redwine might have some potential. I mean, that's why I mentioned Simmons. We just looked at we looked at linebackers and we looked at different in safety. Either spot, my goodness, you just plug him in there.
When
I wouldn't trade a ton of picks to go get him, but
yeah, when you think of what you said about Simmons and how versatile he is, 5-10 years ago, that was a guy who, he doesn't have a real position. Well, now he has several real positions.
Yeah, basically that meant years ago he was with a coach that didn't have much imagination.
Right, exactly. All right,
I'm curious, it did.
Coming up next Thursday, Terry mentioned it, the draft starts, and we've got complete coverage of it. Dave Bacon will join me hosting the More Sports-and-Les-levine draft special, and we'll have the entire compliments of cleveland.com with us. That'll start the 23rd. That's a week from tonight. 8 o'clock, we'll go to the end of the first round. On that night, join me, Dave Bacon, and the cleveland.com staff. We break down the draft exclusively right here on cleveland.com. Northeast Factory Direct, East, West, and South. They've got those locations. And, of course, the great website, northeastfactorydirect.com, the place to go. And the guaranteed price that Alex is putting out there, he'll match it within a year. If you find something cheaper than what he sells it for, he'll refund the money immediately to you. We'll come back in a moment with terry-pluto exclusively on cleveland.com.
Celebrate Naturestone's 30-year anniversary with a free Naturestone floor. During 2020, we will be giving away 30 free floors to 30 very lucky customers to say thank you for making Naturestone the best concrete flooring solution for garages, basements, and more. Call or visit naturestone.com today to register to win, and we'll send you a copy of our new buyer's guide absolutely free. There's no purchase necessary. Winners will be chosen monthly. With over 30 million square feet installed for more than 60,000 customers, it's easy to see why I always say it's not just a floor. Wow, it's Naturestone.
Got your Ohio Lottery pick 3, I see.
Yup. Those glasses are hip.
Hip? Most people think I'm a square. But what's wrong with that? A box bet can increase your chances of winning. And what is a box? A square. There are so many ways to play. They're just coming out the wazoo. Oh, shucks. Look at me yammering on. Put a lid in it, Picky Ricky. Play the Ohio Lottery Pick 3 today.
There are tastes we remember. Every smell brings the happiness of times gone by. Experience this every time you walk into Gallucci's Italian Foods. Whether you need lunch on the go, a catered party, or that perfect blend of wine, meats, and cheeses, Gallucci's has exactly what you're looking for. Straight from Mama's Kitchen for old world traditions or original experiences. From the tastes you remember to new flavors you'll never forget, Gallucci's is a tasty branch of your family tree.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Time for a How Come Quickie. How come if things go smoothly in Roger Goodell's man cave over next week, the Las Vegas Raiders may play some of their games there until their stadium is ready? You envision that? Do you think his basement's big enough to go 100 yards?
His salary's big enough to buy one. That what's he make? Doesn't he make like $40 million a year
40,
or something?
44. 44.
4.
That's
Moses
the playoff
Malone,
formula.
That was old Moses Malone. That's when you're old, you start going to back. But no, in terms of exactly for $44 million times whatever 10 years or whatever he's been doing this thing.
Unbelievable. All right, you mentioned earlier Ezra Cleveland, Boise State, not necessarily the hotbed of football, although they do a nice job out there. It looks like there's a whole bunch of linemen that are just really good. You know about the top 4. And after that, you've got even more than that. So here's a look at Ezra Cleveland, who I would be surprised if they took him with the first pick.
No, they would. That would be a trade down or something like that. Dean Brugor, who's a draft analyst for The Athletic, guy from Mount Union, worked his way up. I wrote a column
and by the way, you did a great column on him the other day.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's like, because I was talking, how do you do this? How do you wake up one day and say, I want to be a draft analyst?
Right. Or I want to be an NFL insider.
Right. Well, he's done it. And actually, his track record's pretty good when you look at some of his past things. I love the fact nobody ought to do this, but he did it. He wrote 250,000 words on this draft that's in that thing online. You can get The Beast, as it should be called, for The Athletic.
Right.
But I texted him about the Cleveland thing, and he mentioned that he had, I guess I missed it. He had one of his reports. He had said about a week ago he heard this thing about them trading down. They like the kid from Boise State, and he said that he wanted to make it clear that he's not as good as Joe Thomas, but he's more of they call it kind of a technique, a finesse type tackle, not a run smasher blocker.
All right, let's take a look at.
Hey, let me ask you this, Les. Yeah. How do you feel about the 6'8", 365-pound Becton from Louisville?
You know, we all know why they have the 40, and that's just supposedly how long you run when you're tracking down a punt. That's Paul Brown. Brown came up with that. How far down and how fast does an offensive lineman have to go on a regular basis?
Yeah, in fact, they do have like a 10-yard thing that they keep track of too. But it's you go 4 inches before you get hit. So I don't know how fast. It isn't just that. I think it has to do with your ability to move laterally, side to side.
Right.
That's a big deal. That's why Thomas was so good. You know, how he could just keep creating angles and that. It's also why Thomas, he told me that, you know, he's played with a lot of strange quarterbacks and that. But he said Johnny Manziel drove him nuts because they would have all these blocking schemes set up. And then I'm going to take this guy and I'm going to swing him this way. And he said the minute Manziel felt any sort of pressure, he ran exactly where he was told not to go. He'd run right into my guy. He would get sacked, and then he's staring at me. I'm like, hey, bro, this is the last place you were supposed to go.
That's just one of the problems he posed. Let's
and this gets, by the way, thinking of alignment, there you go.
Yeah. Now, you talked about trading up, trading down. Let's look at what's happened under Jimmy Haslam's ownership for the Cleveland Browns. We'll start with the 2014 draft, and you'll take a look at what they did. They traded down from 4 to 8, and they selected Justin Gilbert with that 8th pick. Sammy Watkins, Khalil Mack, Jake Matthews, and Mike Evans were taken with the 4th through 7th pick, so they missed out on that. Odell-Beckham-Jr. was drafted at number 12 by the Giants. Now we go to 2016 and see what happened there. The Browns traded down from number 2 to number 8, and again from 8 to 15, and then they selected, this hurts, Corey Coleman with that 15th pick. They missed on taking Carson Wentz a couple of times. Joey Bosa, Ezekiel Elliott, Jalen Ramsey, and Jack-Conklin. Eventually they got Jack-Conklin. Now we go to 2017. Let's see what they did. And they traded down from 12 to 25, and they select Jabril Peppers with that 25th pick. Houston used the 12th pick to select Deshaun Watson, and the Browns also received the 4th pick in that 2018 draft, which turned into Denzel Ward. So sometimes it's just you throw it up against the wall and see what sticks. Those didn't stick very well.
That's why I'm holding my head. I'm glad you did put in the Ward thing, because people forget that they did get a first-round pick the next year.
Right.
And they at least used it on something. You know, you go back and you look at those drafts and you don't even shake your head. You feel like your head just rolled off. And the funny thing, too, is they passed on Conklin. They've gone out and signed him, which I guess is one way of remedying it. We'll see what it goes back to. Yeah, you like to have a lot of picks, but you have to know what to do with them.
Right.
I will say this. I'm going to go back there to praise them. I thought the approach to free agency, at least on the offensive side of the ball, was well done. You always hear the quote-unquote, you overspent. Guess what? If you're in Cleveland, you always quote-unquote overspend to bring anybody in who's any good.
In any sport.
Because why else would they want to come?
Yep.
You know, Keenum wanted to come because he knows Stefanski, but the other two guys, they don't know. I mean, Hooper was interested. You know, he gave a nice thing about how he talked to a couple former Browns tight ends, and they told him that he'd enjoy it there and that. But look, they threw a bunch of money at him, and he took it. And he's also going to a system that throws the ball to the tight end. So that's not a good
and by the way, just because a guy is the highest paid guy at a certain position doesn't know that he's been labeled the best player either. Sometimes it's...
No, and 6 months later, somebody else is.
Exactly. Somebody has to be there. No question about that. Terry-Pluto with us. You can explore your interests and find a program that puts you on a path to the right way to go for a bright future at Tri-C, offering more than 1,000 courses and over 140 career and technical programs. Go to tri-c.edu for more information. We'll come on back in a moment. We're halfway through. More Sports and Les-levine continues with Terry-Pluto exclusively on cleveland.com.
As a kid growing up, my dream was to go to college, play baseball, and get a degree. Coming out of high school, I had two choices. I was accepted into a 4-year university, but I decided to come to Tri-C after receiving a scholarship. I got my associate's degree at Tri-C. They transferred all my credits straight into Baldwin-Wallace, so I started at Baldwin-Wallace University as a junior. My name is Tyler Leonard, and I earned my first degree at Tri-C.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery, partners in education, where stars shine.
It takes attention to detail. With your local Bryant dealer, you're getting more than just a technician. You're getting someone who pays attention to your needs and the little things that make a big difference. It takes a dealer you can rely on. And to keep your family warm this winter,
here, let me show you how this works.
It takes Bryant.
Bryant, whatever it takes.
And to keep your family comfortable, it takes Smiley One Heating and Cooling. Find them at smiley1.com.
Let's take a look at this date in sports history. Terry, April 16th, 1940. Bob Feller of the Indians throws the only opening day no-hitter in history, beating the White Sox in Chicago, Comiskey Park, by a score of 1-0. You want that one to stay forever, don't you, Terry?
I do. I'd be curious to see how many pitches he threw.
Oh. I'll tell you what. I was once in a group talking to him about that game, and Luke Appling came up with 2 outs in the last inning, and the Indians are up by 1. Luke Appling was a Hall of Famer, most famous for what?
Hitting foul balls.
Hitting foul balls, fouling off pitches.
Do you want to know what else he was famous for? At least with me.
Go ahead.
He didn't like me. In 1978, I was a minor league baseball writer with the Savannah Braves, AA in the Braves chain. He was one of their roving batting coaches, and he was just sort of an unhappy guy. I don't think he liked the manager, Bobby Dews, who's a friend of mine there too. So anyway, that's what he was famous for, hitting foul balls.
Okay, so he hit foul balls until he got a good pitch.
And a few other foul things.
Yeah. So apparently, with 2 outs in the 9th, Feller was throwing, and it might have been a 10-12 pitch at bat because Appling kept fouling it off, and finally Feller says, "Here, hit it," and he throws him a get-me-over fastball, and Luke Appling doesn't get a hit, obviously, on it. A good play by Ray Mack at second base, and the Indians went on to hold on to that no-hitter. But I think there's
certain. Well, Les, you're an expert on this. Where is Ray Mack from?
Well, Cleveland.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you and I know that, but I think I just mentioned that.
I thought you wanted it. He actually lived on Belvoir Boulevard in University
there you
Heights.
Go, right.
I didn't know how deep you wanted me to go.
That.
Yeah, and his son, Tom, of course, played at Cleveland Heights High and is a Hall of Famer in Canton.
Can your great staff look up how many strikeouts and walks Feller had in that game?
That game,
might give us a clue.
All right, game 1 of the 1940 season. It was a 1-0 game. But I thought, knowing Feller as we knew him, I think it was strange to think that he would just give up a little bit. Not that he gave up, but he said, "What the heck? I can't get this pitch fast and let him hit it, and my defense will take care of it." He's one of the most.
Maybe it was 12,000 pitch of the day, and he just had it.
Yeah. Was he the most unique Indian you followed or covered or talked to over?
Yes, I mean, basically, there are a few guys seriously who kind of unbalanced, but he didn't fit into that category. I mean, he was a product of his age, Les. I mean, the Depression, World War II. I was with Bob when he took myself and one other. It wasn't a writer, it was Bob DiBiasio, and I think they were doing a TV special. There's just like 4 of us, and he took us to Van Meter, Iowa, showed us where he grew up, the high school, the farm, the barn, all that. And remember, this was not during a very wealthy time in the country.
Right.
So, yeah, he was a curmudgeon, and he was tough, and, to his mind, the world was a hard place, and you had to be strong and no whining and no excuses. And when he saw, after World War II and then the growing affluence in this country, it totally baffled him. Yeah. And frankly, my dad was a little like that. It baffled him too.
All right, Feller had 8 strikeouts in that game. I don't know how many walks, but
how
he had
many
8
walks?
8 strikeouts and 5 walks. How about that?
Oh, he probably had a little bit of a pitch count going there.
I don't believe I've ever told this story. When I first encountered Bob Feller, I don't think I've told it on the air. I was playing sandlot ball for the Go team, which is one of the better teams in the city at the time. And yes. Bob had 2 sons who played on one of the teams in the league, and he helped coach the team.
Wasn't it Marty and somebody else?
Marty and Steve. I think Steve. we're playing a game at Gordon Park. You know where that is, 72nd Street in the Shoreway. And it's a 7:30 game, and we had the field from 7 to 7:15, and Feller's team had the field from 7:15 to 7:30. And I'm thinking, wow, this is great. We've got some good players on this team. If we play well, Bob will tell the Indians about us. So anyway, I'm taking ground balls at second base, and all of a sudden something flies by my head, and I look, and there's a bat on the ground. And not a flying bat, a baseball bat. And then here comes another one. And Feller says to everybody, hey, it's 7:16, get off the field. Nice meeting you, Mr.
Okay.
Feller.
Welcome to the Hall of Famer.
Yeah. All right, quickly, because we can carry this on in the next segment. They're throwing stuff up against the wall about realignment to get a season in, maybe a 100-game schedule, maybe what. Just your general thoughts. I don't think this thing we had the other day, putting them with the Dodgers and the Angels and whoever else, because the Indians would finish 4th or 5th in that division. But what do you think in general of what's going to happen?
Well, I think the first of all, anybody that would bet on these games, whether how you think it's going to end up or whatever, is asking for problems, because that assumes everybody's going to come into shape and all these things. You know what these guys are doing. I mean, we had a conference call today with Terry Francona earlier. By the way, this is like my 3rd Zoom thing. I am the king of Zoom today. And I've never did like Zoom before last week in my life. But anyway, Francona mentioned that he heard Clase is throwing well, Emmanuel Clase, the pitcher they got from the Rangers. But he lives in a part of the Dominican Republic where cell phone service is, quote unquote, very spotty. And he just heard he's throwing well. They're trying to get somebody out there to see how he's doing. So you have a lot of this kind of stuff going on. And say they open up whatever, some version of spring training a month from now or whenever. These guys, remember, they haven't been in health clubs or anything. They're not places where you can go. That's why, what you would say on paper or whatever is true, but how these guys are going to come in, what type of shape, who's going to be doing real well when the average temperature is 107.2? That's a whole other deal.
He's in the Dominican. Maybe he's just training at Punta Cana, one of the great resort areas. You don't know.
Apparently, well, wherever it is, the cell service isn't good. That was all I heard.
216-575-0403 is the number to call. Terry, when we get back, I want to continue to talk baseball. We will do that and more. Northeast Factory, East, West, South. They've got 3 locations plus the website, northeastfactorydirect.com. And Alex is giving out his cell phone number if you have any questions for him. You've seen him on TV a million times. 216-288-1808 is the number to call. We'll come back in a moment when things straighten out here in Cleveland. You'll want to go to Sokolowski's University Inn. Nothing better than that. Great people. They'll need your support. They'll ask for, well, they won't ask. I'll ask you for their support. They deserve it. And it's established in 1923, making them Cleveland's oldest family-owned and operated restaurant. We're coming back in a moment with terry-pluto. We'll look at Les-Levine history and more. More Sports and Les-Levine continues exclusively on cleveland.com.
Get Nature Stone for up to half off and never replace your garage flooring again. Cracked, uneven garage floors are dangerous. Thin paints and poly coatings you can do yourself are slippery, peel, and don't correct problems. Why pay for a floor that won't last? Only a professionally installed Nature Stone garage floor is safe and corrects problems that paints can't. And Nature Stone comes with Russell's Promise, our true unconditional warranty, so there are no hidden maintenance costs. Schedule online today at naturestone.com to qualify for up to half off. Hurry, offer ends April 30th. It's not just a floor, wow, it's Nature Stone.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line, a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Presque Isle Downs and Casino has sports betting. Use one of our 50 state-of-the-art Bet America kiosks to place your bet and watch your favorite games on one of our many HD televisions or visit our sportsbook area. Only at Presque Isle Downs and Casino.
Let's take a look at this date in Les-Levine sports history, April 16th, 1968. If you went to the track with the fraternity house bookie, and if you bet with him, he would buy you a hot dog, a program, and a small Sprite. Terry, who would turn that down?
I don't think you did you?
No. No, I did not.
I mean, Les, this is why I agreed to go on the show tonight, because I wanted Les-Levine history.
Well, you know what? You get an extra dose of it because this being our last live show of the week, we go to Les-Levine history in review. Back on Monday, Les pulls a tee shot over the fence and down the street. 2 holes later, a policeman comes up and says, one of you guys hit a car and the driver hit a utility pole. What are you going to do about it? And Les said, I'm going to grip the club a little bit tighter. Then we go to the next. Thank you. Then we go to the next day. Let's see what happened then. He had a Sandlot coach. This is 1960, whatever that is. 65. Les had a Sandlot coach, Rich, who gave him the hit away sign and then said, bunt. Les called a timeout and went out to talk to him. And Les said, how are they going to know what we're going to do when we don't know what we're going to do? Now, that's brilliant coaching as far as I'm concerned. And then we go to the yesterday.
You want to confuse them.
Yeah, well, we didn't know.
All right, Les, but the big question is.
I swung and missed.
What did you do?
I swung and missed.
You swung and missed?
Yeah, if I recall.
Okay.
I probably
should have bunted.
All right, the last one. Here we go. For years, Gus, a longtime softball umpire on the east side, told the players that he once played for the San Diego Chargers. What Gus didn't count on was the invention of the internet, so you could actually find that out.
A lot of stories from that we grew up with would
fall by the wayside
pretty quickly. I mean, now I'm going to hold it up because they would not only that, they'd have their phone going, right? To
exactly.
Check you right on the spot.
No question about that.
What are you talking about?
All right.
I wonder how many of my dad's stories kind of checked out from.
Yeah, you don't want to know. All right, quickly, what do you think happens with baseball? Do you need 100 games? Do you need 80 games? Do you need 120? What do you need?
I think they need games on TV to get money, and they'll take whatever they can get. If it only ends up being 80, it'll be 80.
How about Doug Marie said this a week or so ago.
Francona said in his thing, Wes, and it's a good point. He said we have to be flexible. There's nothing normal about whatever the season's going to be,
and it's not going to be right.
So rather than try and meet any sort of standards of normality, let's just get some games going, get them on TV, and because even a 80-game baseball season played in the heat of Arizona is better than no games. Because think about it, if they don't play at all, it's not just your big leaguers, it's your minor leaguers, everything else. You don't know what you're going to get from the players a year from now.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Doug Marie said this on the show last week that at some point, even if it's 50 games, just get them out there. Just the country needs it for morale purposes. So
yeah,
I thought he made a good point.
We need it on TV. I mean, let's face it, and I've written this in a couple of my faith columns. This staring at the death toll and the virus total and everything on TV and press conferences and day after day. Sure, you want to check in the news or whatever, but I mean that is just heartbreaking, and it's caused soul sickness. It really does. And one of the great things about sports, Les, you and I have talked about this, is a diversion from real life.
No question about it.
And we need diversions from real life. It's why they played baseball during World War II. You know, it's all of those things. It's why we talk sports. You and I have done your battle with Parkinson's. Some of the relief was coming on here, especially in the early stages where it was tough for you, was coming on here and doing the show, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I mean, it's a serious, it's like, it's not important, but it's serious.
No, I can
but
put
it's
that
important.
For the time I do here, I can put that thing aside. There's plenty of time for it to come up and do what it has to do.
Yeah, it's just like when I was dealing with my dad's stroke or some other things. I mean, I was writing a book, our tribe book, about the Indians and a little bit about my dad's stroke during the time when he was dying. And he was up late at night, and sometimes I'd be sitting at the table kind of, because I knew he'd have to go in there and help him with his breathing and some other stuff. And that helped get me through.
Let's go to the phones. Let's go to Scott, who's in Wadsworth, Ohio. Hello, Scott. Scott, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Go ahead.
I had a question. In previous years, there was the supplemental football draft. I remember that's how we got Kozar.
Right.
I haven't heard anything about it, but with the college football season being as uncertain as it is there any possibility for some of the big names to say, just forget it, I want to enter into that supplemental draft and turn pro this year?
Terry, do they still have a supplemental draft? I don't believe they do.
They do. Well, Josh Gordon came in that, but I think they had it. I think they had it already for.
Okay.
It comes like after the regular draft. We'd have to go look that up exactly, but I believe it does.
Yeah, I didn't think they still have it, but maybe they do.
It's possible some could, but I don't really know all the rules on that. There's another thing. There's so much. Remember, there's so much money tied up in these things. Unless you know that, and Scott, I'm sure you do too. They're going to be playing some kind of football in the fall, whether there's people that are watching it or not.
Right.
There's going to be TV cameras. And
college may go in next April. Who knows? We have a Facebook question of the day. Terry, Scott, thank you for the call. Our Facebook question of the day. Fast forward to a week from today. If you could give Andrew Berry one piece of advice before he descends into his personal draft room man cave, what would that one piece of advice be? Terry, what do you think?
If you're going into the draft with your hard set on getting a left tackle, get one. That sounds sort of there. And get a good one. A guy that fits the kind of scheme you want to run, all that sort of stuff. You have Bill Callahan sitting there, considered one of the best offensive line coaches, in the NFL, a guy who's been a head coach, and a guy who has a certain zone blocking scheme they want to run.
Right.
Rely on his input on this, too.
All right, let's see what the fans say. Dennis Davis says, don't overthink this. If you need a tackle and a very good one is available, pick it. Chris R., don't try to reinvent the wheel. Take the best player available with the 10th pick. Rick May, don't draft a player to make headlines. Draft a player to make the team better. Gregory Mees, let nothing sway you away from the offensive line left tackle. Kevin Quinby, best player available. Timothy Bober, do not, I repeat, do not trade down. Gerard Morelli, you better get this right. That's good words of advice. Larry Pantages, he says, don't worry about pressure.
Yes.
Lee Trevino said, pressure is playing golf for $5 a hole when you only have $2 in your pocket. Ted Moon, listen to your scouts and draft the best player available from Ohio State. From a historical knowledge standpoint, read the Browns Blues and False Start by Terry-Pluto, and by all means, hire Les-Levine to run the clock. Dan Gillespie.
Well, hey, Les, we used to, before we do Dan's thing, we used to get Ted to say nice things to us for $5. Now he'll do it for $2.
Dan Gillespie. Lure Joe Thomas out of retirement. Give him a 3-year contract. He'd be 38 by the end of it. Then use the 10th pick for a stud defensive player. Trade up if necessary. Persuade Joe by showing him how many fishing boats and rods he could buy for $50 to $60 million. And Tim Bober says, put the owner's Zoom connection on mute. Very good advice. The More Sports and Les-Levine special draft show comes your way on Thursday night starting at 8 o'clock. Dave Bacon and I will handle the panel. And, of course, the crew from cleveland.com will break it down starting at 8 o'clock next Thursday night right here on cleveland.com. We also have the voicemail of Truth and Reason. If you can't get to the show when it's done live from 6 until 7 p.m. Eastern Time, you can call this number and leave a message, 216-200-6650. We're coming back in a moment. More Sports and Les-Levine continues with Terry-Pluto exclusively on cleveland.com.
You love it, always wanted it, and there's never been a better time to get Nature Stone than during our Spring Weather Breaker sale. We're breaking spring sales records with up to half off beautiful Nature Stone garage floors, patios, porches, and more. Correct cracked, uneven concrete that thin paints and poly coatings can't. Every Weather Breaker savings comes with Russell's Promise, our true unconditional warranty, and there are no hidden maintenance costs. Schedule online today at naturestone.com to qualify for up to half off. Hurry, offer ends April 30th. It's not just a floor, wow, it's Nature Stone.
There are tastes we remember. Every smell brings the happiness of times gone by. Experience this every time you walk into Gallucci's Italian Foods. Whether you need lunch on the go, a catered party, or that perfect blend of wine, meats, and cheeses, Gallucci's has exactly what you're looking for. Straight from Mama's Kitchen for old world traditions or original experiences. From the tastes you remember to new flavors you'll never forget, Gallucci's is a tasty branch of your family tree.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
All right, more sports and Les-Levine continues. Terry-Pluto is with us. Terry, Jeff has been writing us for a long time. He has a question for you. I keep hearing the draft analysts think that Mekhi Becton is going to be a very good left tackle, but he doesn't fit the offense the Browns run. Can you ask Terry to explain that? Terry, can you explain that?
Can I explain zone blocking? No, I can't. Other than I know it, kind of quickness and that are a big part of it. My concern with Becton is this guy could get really huge. I mean, if the bigger the better on the offensive line was, there'd be a bunch of sumo wrestlers would be playing there. I mean, really, you'd have a bunch of 400 and 500 pounders. So you do need a certain amount of quickness. And the fact is that those defensive ends, we could watch Myles-Garrett or whatever, they're getting quicker and faster all the time. So that tackle has to have very good lateral movement, as I mentioned before. So I'm not sure maybe Becton becomes great, but I just think there's a real bust factor to him. The guy to watch, by the way, is this Andrew Thomas from Georgia Tech. He is Georgia. Georgia. I'm sorry. Boy, I keep. My wife keeps catching that too, and in my stories I keep running Georgia Tech, and it's Georgia. But anyway, Andrew Thomas from Georgia.
All right, let's go back to
He's a pure left tackle, and by the way, same thing with that Ezra Cleveland, both pure left tackles.
Let's go back to the phones. Chuck is in Mazer. You got to be quick. Go ahead, Chuck.
Hey, Terry, I just had the opportunity to read your book, The Greatest Summer, and that comes close to loose balls in my mind. But I have a question for you about The Greatest Summer, Terry. How did you feel? Were you on Boughton's side trying to make it as a 40-year-older, or were you on the brave side, a.k.a. Hank Aaron and Bill Lucas, trying to prevent a 40-year-older and giving that opportunity to you, a younger guy?
Well, I was for Boughton because he was very nice to me, and I liked reading Ball 4 when I was a kid. And the Braves were so awful back then. Even if it was just a sideshow, it was a lot better than some of the other things. A remarkable thing, if you go back and look up his stats at Double-A at the age of 39, I think he threw like 9 complete games and 92-degree heat, 94-degree humidity in Savannah. It was pretty amazing.
Yeah, I mean, he did a great job on coming back to the majors after that long gap.
That was my first book. It came out in 1979, Les.
Wow. All right. Hey, Chuck, thanks so much. Stay safe out there. A couple of how-come quickies. This from Mr. Gullible. How come at bedtime a CIA agent quickly goes undercover?
Not bad.
How come, you'll like this. How come Terry-Pluto should maybe think about writing a book someday?
I think about that now and then.
How many are you up to?
I think it's 31. I'll have to ask Roberta.
I got to tell you something.
She's the one that's had to endure them all.
I respect what you do so much. A few people over the years have suggested I write a book, and I've put some ideas down. I'm up to page 2 now.
Well, if you write 1 page a day, you got 365 pages.
Well, that's a good point. John Patrick wants
Nobody
to know.
ever does that. People say that all the time, but no one ever does it.
No. John Patrick says, how come when I go down the straight and narrow, I never see anybody I know? You got about a minute. Anything on your mind that can cover a minute? If not, I'll just say
goodnight. We should have ended the show right there. That's a grand slam.
Always leave them wanting more. No question about that. First of all, I appreciate you coming back. It's been a while since you've been here. I know a lot of stuff is going on.
We'll work on making this a little more regular, Les.
Terrific. And congratulations on your award as the best sports writer in the country. Or the city, for that matter. The country and the city. Congratulations.
Yeah, at least the best sports writer in my house, because Roberta's the best editor and the wisest person.
Well, somebody's doing something right over there, no question about it. Terry, thanks so much. Stay safe out there, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Les.
My pleasure. All right, Terry-Pluto from cleveland.com and the Plain Dealer. All right. We'll see you on Monday. Don't forget Thursday night. We won't have a 6 to 7 show on Thursday. A week from tonight, we'll go into our draft coverage with the Dave Bacon and cleveland.com's crew and all that. That'll be 8 o'clock on Thursday night. Of all the shows I've ever done, this was the most recent.